Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this afternoon where myself, Rick Margerison, and Amy Short will be talking about immersion requirements and basically the balancing innovation, performance, and the safety behind it. What we're doing and what we'd like to talk about is the various different things that are involved with immersion requirements, how we get there, and a lot of things that are involved with there, and why, honestly, you should care about immersion requirements. So, obviously, anybody who's in this room has an absolute interest in immersion cooling. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't be here. And so, there are so many different options that are out there with being cold plate, two-phase, open bath, the various different combinations, hybrid and otherwise, that there's no real standard going forward just yet. And that's what we're trying to really help people cope with, because there's a lot of people who are just getting into it. There's companies that are kind of winging it, and there's real professional companies that are out there that really know what they're doing. And so to be able to ascertain which ones are good, which ones are bad, are really, really important. And coming to immersion requirements is a great plan for anybody who's interested in immersion cooling, because it is one place where you can get professional advice if you just want to sit in, if you just want to learn, if you want to partake, if you want to contribute. It is something that anybody and everybody can get something out of. And it is the best place to have people with experience that can help bring that to the table. So there are so many different things that immersion requirements is part of, and all the other components of immersion cooling from OCP. We really capture a lot of that information, and we put it into one place for everybody to be able to access and quantify. And there's a lot of things that we're going to cover, including the best practices, what you should do, what you shouldn't do, why shouldn't you do this. There are a ton of good reasons why you should really join immersion requirements. You know, the innovation that's behind it, the people that are behind it, some of the largest companies, some of the best companies out there in immersion cooling are all there. The manufacturers of fluid, the tanks, top to bottom, they are all there. They are so collaborative to the point where we're able to release these papers. They're not certifications, to be clear. We still reference the ASHRAE papers and stuff like that. I believe it's ASHRAE 9.9 is where we're really looking at the cooling aspects for immersion cooling. But you know, it's a great guideline. It's a great place to start. And there's a lot of things that have to do with bringing this to the next level and working together. Nobody's smarter as a single person than they are together. So there's just a lot of reasons why you should really just join up. It covers everything top to bottom, and it's just a really great place to be. You don't have to be shy. You don't have to know everything about immersion cooling. You can just show up as a new person. Everybody talks to everybody. There's no real egos that go around the place. So there's a lot of reasons why, if you're getting into this, that you want to pay attention and join the group, because there's a lot of companies out there, and immersion cooling is growing. It's absolutely growing at a fast pace. 2023, we were looking at a $0.4 billion growth industry. And in 2031, they're expecting to go to $2.4 billion. With that type of growth, if you're ignoring immersion cooling, you're going to get left behind. And you want to do it right. If you don't do it right, you're going to go out of business. There are people that are still closing their doors because they tried to do it and they did it wrong. And so we like to try to give that effort and not to waste everybody's time, because a lot of mistakes have already been made. There's no reason for anybody else to make it again. And looking to grow together. And hopefully you can come along.
All right, hello everyone. I want to give a quick overview of some of the key activities that the Immersion Requirements group is doing right now. Do you have the clicker? No, I was using the arrow. Oh, okay. So Immersion Requirements itself is it sits in a really interesting place in our community. It accepts inputs from the community that come early in the pipeline. some groups that, for instance, are identifying key challenges or hurdles that are preventing adoption from accelerating in the ecosystem. It also takes into account a lot of the data that's generated in the work streams that I would say are mid-pipeline. So things like fluids and materials, signal integrity. And it synthesizes those insights from those collective, really focused work groups into a more holistic view of best practices and recommendations at the systems level. So the idea here for immersion requirements and how immersion requirements is really tasking itself to influence the community is to be able to curate best practice documents, to curate design guidelines, to influence codes and standards, and to align product assessment criteria. So it's a one-stop shop that really tries to synthesize a lot of the insights that are generated elsewhere in the community. And the key output of this work stream actually is two things. One is a path to the OCP marketplace for immersion products. This is something that I think is becoming more and more relevant as more vendors start to position themselves in this area. The second is to actually curate the document immersion requirements, and that lays the groundwork for how products need to actually perform, what specific design criteria need to be met in order to be approved. So I'll talk about the OCP marketplace first. There are new processes that we've actually established this year to help to better facilitate products actually being accepted into the marketplace. You'll hear two talks today, one on the fluid side and one actually on the tank side, two success stories of different products actually entering into that OCP marketplace so that the larger world outside of OCP can actually hear more and be amplified. So currently we have one complete specification submission, that is the targeted flow heatsink from Mark McDonald from Intel, and one in progress, that is the base specification for the power supplies that you just heard Oriel and Kevin talking about. We have two different products, one complete and one in progress for product recognition. This is something that to me is incredibly encouraging. This is an evolving marketplace, and we want to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the actual vendors in this place. So it's not just design criteria, but also it's a path to your customer. So this is something that we're really, really excited about. The second thing that really we're focused on right now quite a bit is a new revision for our OCP Immersion Requirements document. This is our holy grail document that tries to outline what guardrails need to be in place when you're designing a product for this market, for this application. And our emphasis here is to really prioritize where we think innovation will take us to allow us to benchmark performance appropriately, make sure these products function properly, but also to ensure safe implementation. So establishing safeguards that are in place that help to protect during normal and abnormal operation, and to solicit feedback on best practice guidance documents as well. Our considerations as we go through this new revision process are really to try to establish a data-based foundation for whatever proposals that make it into the document. Any additions, modifications, or current standards that are established in that document need to have a sound basis and rationale. The second thing is that we want to balance that restrictive nature of the guidance that we're providing to allow innovation and to allow forward progress, especially as the systems, the hardware, and the designs advance. We want to harmonize across multiple OCP work streams. That's why we collaborate so closely with each other. This document isn't just fluids specifications. It's not just tank requirements or power supply recommendations. It's everything. So it really needs input from the community. That's why I'm really excited to be able to present at OCP today, because I think all of you in the audience collectively are coming from a huge diversity of different verticals in this space. Your input is valuable. So what I'd say is I can give a progress update of where we stand, but the OCP Immersion Requirements document is currently open for revision. So if you're interested in participating, take note of where we are in our process, but also make sure that you're engaging. Reach out to myself or Rick so that you can contribute as well. We got feedback from the voice of the community. We started early this year. We were able to get 83 unique engagements and 129 submissions from the community. We are a small but mighty community. We are growing, but that's an incredible amount of input that we got on what we should be prioritizing and what we should be actually emphasizing in this new revision. We were able to reach across the solutions, fluids and materials, and cooling environments community to generate this input. And from that, we created some focus groups that actually are what I would consider small working groups. They're focused in 6 different areas that you can see on this table. It allows us to work in parallel and to accelerate our progress. We have collaborative workspaces that allow people independently to be able to contribute their ideas, their recommendations, and not have to wait until the next meeting to do so. Some focus groups jumped right into drafting. It was a little bit more straightforward. Other focus groups used Miro as a collaborative platform to be able to engage on their own time. And finally, the workflows that are established here are really intended to allow for dual publication of a requirements document. We recognize that there is a need for us to update this document. So we want to come out with a quick step publication that captures some of the lower hanging fruit where there's a lot of consensus in the community, there's a lot of databases, and we want to follow that up with a little longer term publication, which is basically the items where maybe there's not enough consensus, maybe more experiments or feedback are needed from the community. And so this is what you can expect if you're not participating in the OCP requirements workstream. As this document is compiled and these recommendations are made, the output will be a document that the whole community will have access to and be able to provide additional feedback at the end. If you would like to participate more in the actual drafting, the specific recommendations that are formed, the discussions along the way, this is where you can actually sign up. So what we're doing right now is independent review and small group preliminary review. We're in those early stages of feedback, so now is the perfect time to get more involved. The next couple of steps are pretty straightforward, getting feedback and additional data where needed to draft the document itself and to present that out into the community. So those are the things that you can expect to happen here. Our call to action is to join our community calls. We have calls the 3rd Wednesday of every month. You can contact myself or Rick directly if you have questions, if you'd like to get more involved. And you also can apply for product recognition or submit your own specification. Those are things that our group is actually built to help manage. And as our requirements document evolves, I think it'll actually become a much more streamlined and straightforward process. So that's all we have today, but I'm happy to take questions. Rick is happy to take questions. And again, I'd encourage you to scan those QR codes if you'd like to participate or learn more, either about the marketplace recognition, the product recognition, or alternatively to contribute to the new requirements revision. Thank you, everybody.
I had a quick question. So in terms of the requirements, how does some of the work in some of the groups like the FMEA, how does that roll up into the requirements? It wasn't quite clear to me, like on the sort of progression, how it goes from one to the next.
Yeah, that's actually a really great question, and especially since our recent reorganization where we now have solutions, fluids, ITE, and reliability. Part of the reason why that reorg happened is because the chairs at that technical committee level, the 4 chairs, actually do engage regularly. We have bi-weekly meetings as a steering committee to be able to exchange when things like that are items like a requirements document refresh are occurring, areas where maybe more feedback is needed. So there are some formal mechanisms, but I'd say a lot of it is actually informal. It happens because we choose to participate and volunteer here. What I'll also say is that the requirements document is intended to be a very practical baseline foundational description of how products should actually perform or features of the products to actually ensure good function and safety. And so they're not intended to be overly restrictive. We don't want to define for the environment and the ecosystem what they have to actually deliver. So that's where feedback, I think, from those support communities can help us to understand with granularity what should the flashpoint be. What is the data basis for the restriction that we want to apply to flashpoint? What should the viscosity be? Should we worry about dielectric properties of the fluid? Are there safeguards that we maybe haven't thought of? So I think that we do have formal mechanisms in place, but I do think we still have work to do as we manage this new organization of how we can better engage, especially with the broader OCP organization that's not maybe focused on immersion.
Terrific, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. Okay, well, thank you, everybody.
Looks like we got one more.